Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Wellness Crusaders show. We have an amazing guest today. But before we get started, we are going to get some of our little things out of the way. Patty's going to read the mission statement, and I'm going to read it.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Jess. Hello, Christina.
Hello, Patty and Jess. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
We are very excited to have you on our show. This is we've been looking forward to this. So we have a lot to share, and we're just going to I'm going to read our mission statement and then a little bit of a waiver, and then we're going to open up the floor. So the Wellness Crusaders mission, our mission is to educate and empower you to make informed choices for your health, the health of our children, our communities, and our earth. We are committed to fostering a world where the balance between human health and environmental stewardship is respected and nurtured. Join us in this holistic and transformative journey as we work together to create a healthier, more harmonious world for all. Please join the crusade.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
And the disclaimer is listeners understand the role of a health coach is not to prescribe or to provide health care or medical advice or to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease, condition, or other physical or mental ailment of the human body. We are not acting in the capacity of a doctor, a licensed dietitian, nutritionist, psychologist, or other licensed or registered professionals, and that any advice given by the coach is not meant to take the place of these professionals. If the listener is under care of a healthcare professional or currently using prescription medications, the client should discuss any changes with their medical doctor and not discontinue any prescription medications without consulting them first. The listener further understands that the information mentioned in our talks is not to be seen as medical or nursing advice and is not meant to take the place of these licensed healthcare practitioners.
Well, good. Thank you, Jessica. So, Christina Veselak, we're so excited to have you here. And my journey with you goes back a long time. I think I met you in 2007 at a conference I went to when I started learning about mental health, nutrition, and addiction in Sacramento. And I was like, I've got to get to know this woman. And then, of course, you and I have had a journey with the Alliance, and then the Academy started. And you are one of my dearest friends, but also one of my beloved mentors. So thank you for the work you're doing in our communities and in the world. Yay. So let me read a little bit more about Christina's background. This is from Christina. Quote, I'm about saving, transforming lives through my work as a mental health nutritionist by using and teaching the use of amino acid and nutrient therapy, which we'll talk about today. Christina Veselak is the founder and director of the Academy for Addiction and Mental Health Nutrition. We will have links. She has been a licensed psychotherapist for over 30 years and currently provides an online relapse prevention, coaching, and mental health nutrition to a wide variety of clients. Christina consults for supplement companies as well as IV detox programs and residential addiction treatment, helping them to integrate this life-saving nutritional approach into their programs. She is an experienced public speaker and has presented at conferences and trainings around the country. Christina is also a founding member of the former executive of the Alliance for Addiction Solutions, a nonprofit organization which promotes the use of nutritional and other natural modalities to support and repair the addicted brain. Christina is also committed to staying abreast of the rapid growing science of orthomolecular psychiatry, functional nutrition, and biochemistry for mental health, and is passionate about sharing her knowledge with both the general public and professionals in the field of addiction recovery and mental health treatment. Wow. And there you go.
Patty.
So thank you for joining us. And I would like to say that I am one of your teachers for the Academy, but I'm also a certified coach from the Academy, as well as Jessica and as well as Lori. So if any of you are interested in this life-changing training, we will have links to the Academy for Addiction and Mental Health Nutrition. You can go to aminoacidtherapy.com, and we will make sure all the links are on our page, our website as well. And provide Christina's links as well too.
Wonderful. And we should add, Patti, that you are also one of the contributors to our nonprofit organization, Eating Protein Saves Lives, which we started just about 2 years ago to get this life-saving information out to the ordinary person.
Yes. Thank you for that. Yes, that's another eatingproteinsaveslives.org. You can go to that. And these websites are chock full of information too. So please go and browse around and help yourself or a loved one or a client. So our topic today, there's a lot of topics, and I was like, okay, Christina, what should we talk about? Because there's so many things. Jess and I were like, well, what should we ever talk about? She could talk about so many things. But the thing you said, and I thought it was powerful, was the starving brain, feeding the starving brain. So can you just start out with that? Like what is a starving brain, and why is that so critical for everyone to hear about?
So we hear about these starving children in Africa with the big distended tummies, and the starving people here and the starving people there. And most of us think in terms of food for the body and physical health and protein for your muscles and, to have vitality in life. But we never, ever talk about what the brain needs to function optimally. And it turns out that we have a lot of science going back, I don't know, probably even 100 years, that has identified and discovered exactly the nutrients that the brain needs to function optimally. And what happens in human beings when these nutrients are absent, they take healthy volunteers and they deprive them of vitamin D. And people become depressed and schizophrenic. Or they take healthy volunteers and they deprive them of the omega-3 fatty acids, and people become depressed and inflamed and slow and sluggish. And they take healthy volunteers and they deprive them of one or more of the all-important mood-mediating neurotransmitters, the chemicals in our brain which allow us to feel happy and relaxed and sleep or energized and give us get up and go and excitement and joy, or allow us to feel comforted and bonded and right? All of these wonderful states that we associate with emotional well-being are mediated through these neurotransmitters in the brain. But what is never, ever talked about, even though the science has been in for decades, is the nutrients that the brain needs to make these neurotransmitters and to transmit them adequately so that they can actually do the job that they were designed to do in the brain. And I believe this is a tragedy in both the mental health and the addiction treatment field, that nutrition has never, ever been part of the conversation.
Wow. So that's so powerful. Everything that you just said is so powerful. We don't I wanted to jump back to what you said about the starving children too, and how their bodies are actually atrophying, right? The muscles are atrophying. And so when you said that, and I envisioned these poor children and what that looks like, I can only imagine what our brain looks like when it's not being fed the proper nutrients as well.
Exactly. I'm not sure I've seen any science on it, but I suspect it's atrophying as well. And of course, people who are not getting enough nutrients for physical well-being are also not getting enough nutrients for mental and emotional well-being. And then we wonder why people don't have the get up and go and can't learn and study in school or succeed at work. A very important example of this, I think, is people coming out of prison. Because in prisons, people are fed very, very poor quality food that's highly inflammatory and very deficient in our key nutrients, and especially protein, which makes our neurotransmitters. And then we wonder why people coming out of prison have such a hard time doing the doing to get themselves reestablished in society and end up going back to prison.
Or going back to their drug, right? Because I see that
Or
in the
going
treatment.
back to their drug, or going back to their old impulsive behavior that gets them into trouble. And we blame them. And we think it's a moral issue, or a lack of willpower, or a lack of caring, or a lack of all sorts of things, rather than what the reality is. It's that they actually do have a starving brain and do not have the neurochemicals necessary for them to get up and do the doing necessary.
And we've talked about this a lot over the years, and it's really a systemic issue of education, right? No one's learning about nutrition in the schools. So psychotherapists, and Christina, I'd love you to share a little bit, because you were a psychotherapist before you were a mental health nutritionist.
I was.
And I'd love for you to share a little bit of that, because I think we have some, therapists listening to this, and there are a lot of therapists that come to your training who are doing all the psychosocial work in their therapy. Great work. We have great trauma work now, and they're going, people aren't getting better. They're going back. And we see that in addiction as well too. So would you share a little bit about your journey as a psychotherapist, and then how you got into the mental health nutrition? Because, a lot of people don't know about that.
Exactly. By the way, I just want to state that if I disappear, it is because we are in the middle of a thunderstorm.
Oh, okay. I just saw some flashing going.
And my lights just flickered. And so we're just going to hold with careful intention that my electricity stays on.
Okay. Well, we will certainly have you back regardless. But we hope we can hold on to you for another, 40 minutes.
Thank you. As it starts to pour outside. Okay, I think you have an announcement, and then I will share about how I got into this.
Okay.
Yeah. So we wanted to let you all know that this show is also brought to you by KMMU, which is Main Street Media of Utah, and we are so very grateful for this spot that we have every Thursday. We are also live on Rumble, YouTube, Twitter, and KMMU.org. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, KMMU, Main Street Media. Thanks, Jess.
Thank you.
And Christina. We also have call-ins. We'll give the call-in number, which is 385-899-2134. Again, the call-in number is 385-899-2134. We're going to have some call-in. We usually have call-ins at the top of the hour, but Christina's got to leave at the top of the hour. So we're going to have call-ins halfway through. So we'll give you the heads up when you can call in, but be sure to be ready to ask some questions if you want to chat with Christina. So Christina, please share with us a little bit about your journey with as a psychotherapist and a mental health nutritionist.
Absolutely. Well, I'm actually going to start with a personal story.
Oh.
And the personal story is that I was depressed. I'm not depressed any longer, but I was depressed from day one. And by the time I got into college, I was quite seriously depressed and went away for the summer to Switzerland, and the depression got a little better. And that was wonderful. And I thought it was just because I was having fun in Switzerland. Came back to school and started eating the healthiest breakfast I could in the cafeteria, which were some form of eggs every morning. And within 2 or 3 weeks, I was so depressed again that I actually couldn't even function.
Wow.
And I was in the library trying to study, couldn't study, started crying and started praying and said, Lord God, you need to do something about this because I can't function. And I sort of leaning over a stack of magazines on the desk where I was. And so I just idly opened the top magazine that just happened to be there. And it was an early version of Prevention Magazine. And I
Mm.
opened it to an article on how food intolerances and allergies can actually cause mental health symptoms.
Mm.
And the actual page that I had opened it to was discussing how eggs can cause depression in susceptible individuals.
No
And I
kidding.
thought, well, that's really interesting because when I was in Switzerland, for whatever reason, we just didn't have any eggs. Eggs were not on the menu. I didn't have eggs for breakfast. I didn't have eggs for lunch.
Interesting.
For a whole 2.5 months, I
Wow.
didn't touch an egg unless it was just a little bit in something. And then I come back to school and I'm having eggs every morning for breakfast. Well, the article then went on to say that it can take 4 days for an allergen to get out of your system, and symptoms can start to get better on day 5. It also said that if you've been off the food for a while and then go back on it, like I did, you're going to get an unmasked and actually amplified reaction,
Mm.
which is why it turned out my depression was so much worse coming back after the summer of not eating eggs.
Mhm.
So I decided to not eat eggs or anything with eggs. I was very obsessive about this for 5 whole days. And on day 5, I was still depressed, but it was the depression of Switzerland. I could function. I could enjoy things. I
Mm.
could study.
Wow.
And that was my very first experience of mental health nutrition.
Mm.
That there's actually foods we eat that can wreak havoc with our brains. For me, it happened to be eggs. It also
Mhm.
turned out later that I was severely intolerant of corn, and corn actually ended up making me suicidal for a while.
Wow.
I remember going out to dinner with you once, and I was like, "You got to make sure there's no corn in this dish." We were at a Mexican restaurant, and I'm like, "No, no, no, we're talking about serious corn allergy."
It was a very serious corn allergy,
Yeah.
and I don't have it anymore. And I'm no longer allergic to eggs anymore. Because I just did a lot of healing work and some energy medicine work as well, some acupuncture, so forth. But for a long time, I had to very carefully avoid everything. It turned out that there were 8 or 9 biochemical reasons for my depression and
Mm.
anxiety. And yes, I had PTSD, I had trauma, I had all sorts of psychological and life challenges that I had to overcome. And that definitely played into it. But it wasn't until I addressed all 9 layers of the biochemical issues that I actually became free of all of it and started flourishing. And that's why I became a mental health nutritionist, because I figured that if I had to go down through 9 layers, and for me, it took years to figure out all these 9 layers, how many layers do other people have to
Yes.
go through before they can have emotional and life freedom as well? And so that's where my passion started.
Wow, that's powerful. I don't know that I knew all those details about Switzerland, so thank you for filling me in on that, and Jessica as well too. Talk a little bit about the protein element here. Jess, you may have something to ask her too. I think it's interesting about the food allergies because for people that are listening to, we're going to talk a little bit about protein, but they're probably thinking, oh, wait, eggs, that's one of my main protein sources. But what you said was you had it every day, right?
Yeah.
And your gut wasn't repaired. So you can go back to things, but when we repeatedly have the same things,
That's right.
your body creates a reaction to it.
It certainly can. It certainly can. And
Yeah.
I, of course, discovered that the hard way. But back to protein and how I really integrated this into my work as a psychotherapist is I noticed that some of my clients who would come in to therapy and do really, really good work every once in a while would come in and would be bouncing off the walls, or would be crying, or would be hysterical, or just would be unable to participate in the therapy hour. And I started asking two questions. Of the female clients, it was, when in your cycle are you? Do you happen to know when your period is starting? Because a lot of women can be, okay enough 3 weeks out of the month, and then the fourth month, it all falls apart. And we were not taught about this in therapy school. We weren't taught to ask our clients about hormonal issues. And in treatment programs, this is still not asked about or taught about. And it turns out that many women, for many women in early recovery and later recovery, the week or so before one's bleeding starts is the highest risk time of the month for cravings and relapse. Mm. Now, menopause also becomes one of the highest risk time in a woman's life for either relapsing back into an addictive or mental health disorder, or starting a new one. But that's another story. So we'd ask women what time of the month they were, or what their relationship was with menopause. But I also started asking, by the way, when was the last time you ate protein today? And it became very interesting, because the people who were bouncing off the walls, especially those who didn't usually, but anyone who was, and I'm using bouncing off the walls kind of metaphorically, right? They would say, let's see, it's 2:00 in the afternoon. I had an egg at 7:00 in the morning. Or, what's protein? Does an apple contain protein? Or, yesterday, I think I had some yesterday. Uh-huh. And I would say, okay, do you mind if I feed you? And so when I was seeing people in person, I would feed them literally. I would have mozzarella cheese sticks for people who could tolerate cheese, or nuts, or protein shake, or protein bars, or even full frozen entrees in my freezer.
Wow.
Right? And I would start feeding people. And I have this amazing example. I mean, it would happen invariably. I would ask people to rate their symptoms on a scale of 0 to 10, and then I would feed them. And then 20 minutes later, I'd ask them to rate the same symptoms. And invariably, they had grounded, they had calmed down, they were able to think again. And I only had to do this a couple of times before they would come into session glowing and saying, "You'll be so proud of me. I ate before coming in."
Woohoo!
But I had this one gentleman who had a history of severe domestic violence. He'd actually gone to prison behind it. And he was diagnosed bipolar, and they pretty much decided that his violent episodes were when he was manic. Well, he got out of prison. He came in to see me. He'd stopped drinking, and he really wanted to put his life back together again. And for 4 months, all I could see was this teddy bear. He was the nicest, gentlest, most humble man I'd ever met. He took full responsibility for all his behavior. He was really compliant. He was really committed, and he was just sweet. And I couldn't reconcile this lovely person sitting in front of me with his history, until one day he stomps into my office. Rage is rolling off him. He's like beet red. His fists are clenched, and I'm scared. I pull back.
Where's the teddy bear at?
I say, have you eaten lunch? And he, for 10 minutes, at the top of his voice, he gave me all the reasons as to how it was everybody else's fault as to why he didn't get lunch. Oh. This is a man who never ever blamed anybody for anything.
Wow.
And so I said, can I feed you? So And I did. I defrosted, I don't know what I had in my freezer, but a really high protein meal. And he sat there and he ate it. And it was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. Over the next 10 to 15 minutes, his color came back to normal. His shoulders came down. His fists unclenched.
Mhm.
And he looked at me and he said, "Oh my." He said, "I used to be that way all the time. And I never used to eat. I just didn't eat."
Wow.
And then I came here and you told me to eat protein every 4 hours. So I started doing that until today. He said,
Wow.
"I'm never, ever missing a meal again." And that's why I do what I do and why I teach what I teach.
Wow, that's an incredible experience.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And
Well,
it's also why I feed my clients in session, by the way.
right. Well, I know not everybody's on camera, but I just wanted to show you my starving brain, and it might not look that good, but this is a mackerel salad. And I was
Ooh,
like,
yum.
I need to eat. So I wanted to show people that. Here's the mackerel.
There you go. Good for
Mackerel
you,
is a
Patty.
small fish. It doesn't taste yucky like sardines. And Christina, I know you love sardines.
I
And
do.
so I could just interject when I would travel or we would go do a conference or a training together. Christina had little boxes of sardines in her suitcase. And I think we were in Colorado somewhere and the food was horrible. Of
Mhm.
course, so much of the food, and we'll chat about that. And she's like, we're going to have to go back to the room and eat my sardines. And I was like, I'm there because we couldn't eat the hotel food. Right.
No,
So
no.
this is also about, it can be as easy. You don't have to make the salad. You can just open a can of sardines.
Yeah.
I mean, mackerel or sardines.
Mackerel's yummy.
So thank you for that. Could you address a little bit, because you're talking really about the hypoglycemia issue?
Yes.
Okay. And that's connected to the starving brain. And what else creates the starving brain?
Well, so protein is very important, and we do recommend a good, at least minimum 20 grams of protein every 4 waking hours. But protein does two very important things for us. The first thing it does is that when we eat it and digest it, providing our digestion is good and we're absorbing it well, it turns into little molecules called amino acids. And we love amino acids.
Yes.
Okay. Amino acids go all through our body and they do all sorts of things. They make our skin, they make our blood, they make our muscle, they make our DNA, they make our enzymes. We couldn't survive without the amino acids from the protein that we eat.
Right on.
Because some of these aminos, because we have to get enough protein, because some of these aminos actually make their way through the blood-brain barrier into the brain. And in the presence of vitamins and minerals, this is why fruits and veggies and other sources of vitamins and minerals are so crucial, turn into neurotransmitters. So we need to be eating enough protein throughout the day to not only make muscle, but also make our neurotransmitters. And protein eaten throughout the day keeps our blood sugar absolutely stable.
Right.
We can talk about intermittent fasting in a little bit.
Okay.
Some people can
That was one
manage
of our
it, a
questions.
lot of people cannot manage it. But so generally, especially if people are really struggling, we recommend eating some protein within an hour and a half, getting up in the morning, sometimes sooner, and then every 4 hours. Because it turns out that when we go too long, most people are in a 4 hour cycle. For most people, and for premenstrual women, it tends to be 3 hours. If we go longer than that window, blood sugar starts dropping very dramatically. And when blood sugar drops too low or too fast, the brain says, oh no, this is dangerous. We need to do something. And the adrenals kick in and secrete adrenaline. And adrenaline just simply secretes or releases more stored sugar back into the bloodstream. and brings our, blood sugar level up to a reasonable level. This is great and can save people's lives. However, adrenaline is not so great for the brain. And what happens under the influence of adrenaline, or if we move into what's called the sympathetic nervous system or sympathetic arousal, is, first of all, willpower, the ability to say no, and the ability to remember why we want to say no to certain substances and behaviors. That goes out the window. Bye-bye. So does access to large part of our prefrontal cortex. Well, this matters because this is where our recovery skills are stored. This is where we remember why we want to stay clean and sober, where we remember how to breathe, how to relax, how to pause. And this doesn't matter just for people in recovery from substance use disorders or other addictive disorders. This matters for anxiety and depression and violence, as we saw with my gentleman. Okay. He wasn't bipolar. He was severely hypoglycemic. And what happened when his blood sugar dropped is he would get such a huge outpouring of adrenaline that it completely changed his personality and brought out rage in him. For other people, this outpouring of adrenaline will lead to panic attacks. I had one client who came in for her first session, sat down, looked at me, and said, "You're number 8." I said, "Oh, 8." It turns out that she had had twice daily panic attacks for 10 whole years. 10 years. She'd been to 3 psychotherapists who helped her cope with the panic attacks but didn't get rid of them. 4 psychiatrists who put her on medication, made her feel crazy and weird, didn't get rid of the panic attacks, but she didn't give up. I commended her for not giving up. So I was number 8. And I asked a question apparently nobody else had ever asked. I asked, well, when during the day are your panic attacks? Well, it was upon arising and around 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
His blood sugar was dropping.
It was blood sugar. So I asked, well, what happens after you eat breakfast? Do you eat breakfast? She said, yeah, I eat breakfast. What happens to your panic attack when you eat breakfast? It goes away. Now, she had not connected the dots, so this was sort of a surprise to her when she recognized that. And I said, well, do you eat lunch or an afternoon snack? Oh, no, I never eat lunch, right? Like it was a pride thing. And I said, okay, so you get a panic attack at 4 o'clock. Do you eat dinner? She said, yeah, I tend to eat an early dinner. I'm hungry. So she eats around 5. No wonder she's hypoglycemic when she wakes up in the morning. And I said, well, what happens to your afternoon panic attack when you eat dinner? Oh, it goes away too. So I told her what I wanted her to do. We made an appointment for the following week. She calls me 4 or 5 days later and cancels the appointment and says, thank you so much. I have not had one panic attack since I walked out of your office for the first time in 10 years.
Wow.
Woohoo.
Now, I do have to say, I fed her in our session because it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I gave her a protein shake so that she would not have her 4 o'clock panic attack.
In your office.
In my office, exactly, or when she walked out of it, and she didn't. And this is why it is so vital to keep our blood sugar balanced. What happens to people in early recovery, and not so early recovery for that matter, is that blood sugar drops, adrenaline kicks in, the brain and body is destabilized by adrenaline. We can feel anxious or agitated or reactive or impulsive or shaky, right? Everybody responds differently to adrenaline, but we all respond badly to adrenaline unless we really, really need it. And People in recovery from addictive disorders tend to have a conditioned response to crave the drug or behavior of choice when out of balance, when destabilized. So right out of the bat, this adrenaline response can set off a craving. It's a conditioned response. So now you have a craving, and your willpower has gone out the window, and your recovery skills have gone out the window. And what do you do? Well, some people are grounded enough and in the habit of recovery behavior that they can get through. Other people just white knuckle it, and other people go out and use. And we've asked clients, and maybe, some of your listeners have had this experience too of, well, how come you didn't use your recovery skills? I know them. It's like, I don't know. I forgot. And then, well, when was the last time you ate protein prior to your craving or your slip? Yesterday? So this is why people don't remember to use their recovery skills. It's really they can't access them because this part of the brain is offline. And nobody knows this. This is why I've been asking.
This is the difficult part, right? How do we get more people to understand you've got to have some protein, or you've got to take the time to make sure you have protein available,
exactly,
food available for you to eat, that it's not optional.
It's not optional. Not optional. Or, and this is where aminos come in, while you're waiting to find the right food, so you just don't go out and get a milkshake from McDonald's,
right,
which just sets off this, right,
is
the amino acid L-glutamine. And the amino acid L-glutamine feeds the brain temporarily while you're looking for real food. And this is especially useful for people who are doing intermittent fasting and find that by the end of the fasting window, they are really irritable and really unstable and not okay. And once the eating window opens, they eat everything in sight. Okay, this is a sign that they really are hypoglycemic and probably don't have enough adrenal stability to manage intermittent fasting. Taking the L-glutamine in the morning will help people maintain calm until their eating window opens again.
Right. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I wanted to talk more about that too. So I'm glad that you brought up.
Jessica wanted to ask about it.
Yeah, because it's such a trend right now, Christina. It's such a trend, but there's certain people that should not be using it, right? And can we talk about those certain people that should not be doing intermittent fasting yet?
So generally, people in very early recovery,
right,
should not be doing intermittent fasting because their blood sugar already is very unstable. Their brain is already depleted of nutrients, and they just can't afford the loss of that meal.
Right on.
The other thing with people in early recovery, and other people as well, is that if we've been under a lot of stress for a long time, our adrenal system is really shot. Well, our adrenal system is what manages stable blood sugar. And if we have a really weak or out of balanced adrenal system, then trying to go for much longer periods of time without food just doesn't work. And you're one of those people if by the end of your fasting window, you are a nervous wreck or not very nice person, and you're starving. So we ask people to wait and eat really healthy food. Stay away from the carbs. We do want to reset people's metabolism. We do want to help them manage energy sources more effectively, but not everybody needs to go either to intermittent fasting or keto to do that. Sometimes just by laying aside the simple carbs and eating real food every 3 to 4 hours throughout the day does the same thing. That's a great place for people to start.
Yeah.
And that's what we recommend. Patti and I, but mostly Patti, developed for the Academy what we call our 5-star pro-recovery diet. And it's not really a diet as much as a food philosophy and eating philosophy. And it starts with, she can in a little bit talk about the 5 stars.
We can talk about that when you leave. I'll talk about it with everybody.
But the foundation is leaving aside your simple carbs and your sugar and eating that protein every 4 hours. Okay, announcement time.
Yeah.
Oh, it's my time now
to announce.
Your 5-star.
Oh, the 5-star pro recovery diet. Yes. Well,
you can. I was just wondering if we needed to announce that. Oh, I guess that was old. Okay, you're good.
No, I'll talk about it after, but I'd love to talk about that because we've talked about the food before too. But while we still have you here, it's our precious Christina is leaving in less than 20 minutes. So we do want people, if they want to ask any questions, to call in the number while they can still talk to Christina. Jess and I will be staying on, and we will be having Christina back in May. And talking more about the amino acid therapy that the Academy offers training in. And that is so powerful for people to heal with mental health conditions and addiction. And yes, we're talking about the food, eating protein, but connecting with someone as well who was a trained coach from the Academy on how to use amino acid therapy and nutrient therapy to upregulate those neurotransmitters while they're getting their meals planned. Is absolutely profound. And I want to make sure people get that information as well too. So I want to make sure, can we get the call-in number up on the screen in case people want to call in? And while we're waiting, Christina, can you just talk a little bit about the aminos?
I would love to talk about the aminos.
Thank you. Because I know a lot of people are going, what about the aminos? Christina's, it's aminoacidtherapy.com. Okay. So share a little bit about that, and then we can have you back on in May.
All right. So as I mentioned before, when we eat and digest our protein, it turns into amino acids, which are these little molecules that go everywhere, do various things. Some of them get into the brain, and our 4 mood-mediating neurotransmitter systems. We have the catecholamines, which includes dopamine and adrenaline. We've got serotonin, we've got the endorphins, and we have GABA. Now, these all have precursors from the food we eat, and specifically from the protein. So serotonin has 2 amino acids, L-tryptophan and 5-HTP. L-tryptophan is found in most of the protein foods we eat. And then 5-HTP was found in a South African herb called griffonia. And so it is the source. So tryptophan turns into 5-HTP, turns into serotonin, turns into melatonin. It turns out that we can take a free-form purified amino acid, a little powder in a little capsule, and within 20 minutes, it actually gets to the brain, and the brain will make more neurotransmitter in 20 minutes, thus turning off symptoms. So symptoms, for instance, of low serotonin will include an anxious, agitated depression, or panic, or social anxiety, low self-esteem and self-attack, or perfectionism, or being really rigid and really nasty, right? They're all low serotonin. And we can take some 5-HTP, providing you're not on an SSRI, and those symptoms will significantly lessen once you get the right dose within 20 minutes. Right. So it helps in the moment, but then if you're taking it over time, it will also rebuild and upregulate your neurotransmitter systems, thus turning off cravings and maintaining positive mood over a period of time. So you don't have to take aminos forever unless you have a lot of genetic weirdness going on, just enough to get your neurotransmitters sort of upregulated and refilled. And then the food is supposed to help your brain maintain it itself.
Right.
So like low dopamine or low norepinephrine will have a slow, sluggish depression or flatness with no joy in life and no vitality and or ADHD and you can't focus on anything and you're bouncing from here to here to here. And taking tyrosine, which is found in the protein we eat, but sometimes not enough. Mm-hmm. Taking one or more capsules of tyrosine within 20 minutes will start rebuilding the catecholamine system and give you energy and get up and go and drive. Mm. And I kind of lived on that for a good 10 years.
Yes,
I don't need it anymore now most of the time.
Right. Right. Well, that's
like.
Go ahead, Jess.
I said that's one that I like.
Right.
I took,
right.
I took 4 this morning.
Yeah. And so just for our listeners too, as we talk about these different aminos and everybody reacts differently. So we do personalized amino acid therapy. I do not do well with tyrosine. I never need tyrosine, but I certainly do need tryptophan, which is another serotonin uptake for tryptophan. Did I say that already? But anyway, so just so everybody knows that we're not giving out any prescriptions here, but when we do another talk on aminos, we're going to get into it more because it is so profound and healing for people to rebuild their neurotransmitters. And talk a little bit about GABA, because that's a big one for folks too.
That's right. A lot of people are GABA deficient. And what GABA does is it's our primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. It calms us down. It allows our muscles to relax. It actually also is part of our buffer system that keeps stimulus from overwhelming us or keeps us from being rattled by bright lights or loud sounds or scratchy clothes. So people, with a highly sensitive personality issue, find that everything bothers them and that taking GABA can actually bring relief and bring a little bit of a buffer, which is so comforting and soothing. So if we are feeling very tense, we can't relax into sleep, or very anxious, taking GABA can be really helpful. You want to start low. Too much GABA can kind of paradoxically backfire on you. Or my favorite is sort of a GABA substitute is the amino acid theanine. I love theanine. Theanine just takes the edge off and allows me to breathe and think if I'm in a stressful situation, like working with my accountant or bookkeeper. And theanine is also really good for people with ADHD who find themselves spinning. If way too much is hitting their brain all at the same time, it's like, well, should I do this or should I do this or should I do this? And we start spinning. And as we spin, our anxiety goes up and then we just freeze and can't think and just run away or procrastinate or I'm done. I'll do it tomorrow, maybe. I don't know if any of you have had that experience, but I lived there for a really long time. And theanine just stops that spin. It allows your to-do list to go in a nice straight line. It stops the freeze. And I will take 1 or 2 before I'm going into like a stressful meeting or conversation. And it will just allow my brain to stay engaged in functioning.
Fantastic.
So I have a really powerful story to share about theanine. I had a client the other day who came to me and had lost their memory, like had amnesia, couldn't remember how they got to me, couldn't remember where they lived, couldn't remember anything. And I was like, I went through, like I did, took oxygen levels, I took their blood pressure. Like I did certain things, right, to make sure that they were okay. And did we need to call 911? I'm like, do we need to call 911? Is this a stroke? What's going on? And my intuition said, grab the theanine, give them theanine. So I did some muscle testing and I needed to give them theanine. And within like 30 minutes, the memory was coming back. And then I also made a really high power protein shake with all the things for the brain in it. And within an hour, like everything was back to normal. They were completely back to normal. Things had settled down. They knew who they were. They knew where they lived. They could recall everything. And had I not had that training, Christina, had I not had this knowledge and known that theanine is neuroprotective as well, there's like, that client would have gone to the hospital, right? Mm-hmm. And then it would have been misdiagnosed, because what was really happening was the brain hadn't been fed and they were in a stressful, traumatic situation where that had taken over. There was some disassociation that was starting to happen. But had I not had that knowledge, things could have ended up so much differently, right?
What a wonderful story.
I'm so grateful for that knowledge that I've been taught because of you, and like, this is information that has to get out there. More people need to know about this.
Right.
But it was so powerful to watch that transformation take place in front of my eyes.
In your office. That's amazing. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful story.
So it is. When she told me, I was like, you have to share that on the show with Christina when she comes on. So the magic of feeding the brain, feeding the starving brain. I wanted you, before we lose you, I wanted you to just talk a little bit about the endorphins and our natural opiates, because obviously we have an opiate epidemic. And if you can talk a little bit about the endorphins and how powerful those neurotransmitters are, and how misguided they can be too, because it's so much about love and grief. And since we have a lot of grief that's been happening and fear in our world right now, can you just talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. In fact, I just put together a really in-depth PowerPoint presentation on the endorphins and opioid addiction, withdrawal, and then relapse prevention that I'm giving at the Southwest Herbal Medicine Conference at the end of the month.
Wow.
So if any of you are really interested in that, you can either come to the conference, or when they sell the recordings, you may be able to access it then. It's a really, really in-depth presentation. Wonderful. So the endorphins are one of our 4 big mood-mediating neurotransmitter systems that regulate pain awareness, both emotional pain and physical pain, but also help regulate our ability to feel comfort, feel attached and bonded, and give and receive love. So it sort of runs with the hormone oxytocin, but it's its own thing. And it requires a very high protein diet for the brain to have it available robustly. Exactly. Very often people will come in with very low endorphins, but once they start eating a high protein diet over a period of weeks, the endorphin system rebuilds itself, which is really wonderful. Because it has a lot of amino acids as part of its structure, we can't just take one the way we can with the other with the other neurotransmitters. However, in the 1970s, a researcher in the University of Chicago Medical Hospital synthesized an amino acid called D-phenylalanine. I'm not going to go into all the details, but DPA, you can buy it online. You cannot buy it over the counter. And he developed it to reduce the amount of morphine that was needed post-operation. And indeed, in large enough doses, it can really nicely take the edge off emotional pain and physical pain. And if you're stuck in grief or stuck in loneliness, and like wanting to, eat your cookie dough ice cream or your bag of Oreos, right? Or, go out and find your next love before you've finished mourning your last love. It can be really, really useful. And again, like all the aminos, it works within about 20 minutes and can just bring comfort. Now, people become addicted to opioid drugs, and the opioids fire both the endorphins and the catecholamines and dopamine. So both systems become depleted with long-term opioid use. And this is one of the reasons why withdrawal is so incredibly difficult when people are coming off, heroin or oxycodone or even Suboxone and methadone. And we found that using the dephenylalanine can, along with other herbal and nutrient support, can make this withdrawal process off opiates much more bearable, much easier, and much shorter.
Mm-hmm.
And I include how to do that both in the lecture I'm giving at the herbal conference, but also in my training through the academy.
Right.
It's also taking large amounts of dephenylalanine afterwards, along with some tyrosine for your dopamine and norepinephrine support post acute withdrawal, like a couple of weeks later. A couple of weeks after acute withdrawal, a lot of people with opioid addiction issues crave their drug because they're so exhausted they can't get out of bed. They need it for get up and go, not so much to zone out, but to actually function.
Right.
And this is where adding the tyrosine to the dephenylalanine can support both neurotransmitter systems and keep people in long-term recovery.
Right on. Thank you for that one. That's a big one. And I just wanted to share that when my sister was passing away, she passed away from cancer. I used the total aminos and DPA and my food to get me through that while we were all supporting her transition. And it was a lifesaver because the grief was overwhelming.
Of course.
And I used it for some other losses too. So I just wanted to put that in there for people dealing with grief and it feels overwhelming and you don't want to eat.
No.
But it allows you to be with the grief. You're not numbing it, but you're able to sit more with it. And I'm so grateful for the amino acid therapy during all my grief and loss in the last 5 years. So thank you for your education and information about it, Christina. And
you're welcome.
Yeah, and I've used DPA too. I mean, I've got it sitting right here. It's just it was such a godsend for me last year with the loss of my mom and the loss of a baby and it just, and friends to suicide who I wish had this information. It just, I mean, these seriously are saving lives. Like this information is saving lives. What the knowledge that you have is saving lives. And I have had so many people. I had two clients that were suicidal in the same week, and I check on them the next day. Oh my gosh, I can't even believe how great I feel, Jessica. Thank you so much, And it's that quick. It is that quick that it's happening and that it's shifting the thought process and shifting those moods that it's working faster than pharmaceuticals work. And there is a time and there is a place for pharmaceuticals.
Yes.
Those take a while, right? They take 4 to 6 weeks before you start to see the results. And sometimes that can be too late. And
the thing is, Jessica, so many of these pharmaceuticals are so powerful that they're actually dependency forming themselves and very difficult to get off. You actually have to get off them very, very slowly to avoid withdrawal symptoms. But amino acids are anti-addictive. They're anti-dependency forming. And you can buy them at your local vitamin store or from Amazon. They're anti-addictive because they are rebuilding the neurotransmitter systems, right? Rather than depleting them.
Right.
The way addictive substances do.
and they go right in, as our topic tonight is the starving brain. They can go right in, and like you said, Jess, people are like, wow, my panic attack has gone away. I'm going to look at my list and know what I can get to do today. It's that quick. You still have to eat. You still need the calories coming in, but what we call them the front runners.
Exactly, the front runners.
Yeah. Yes. So, well, how long do we have you for, Christina? Because
Well,
go ahead.
I do actually need to go. It is the top of the hour.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Well, we
Maybe
are
it's
so
12 minutes
grateful.
more.
We're so grateful for you showing up and coming today. And again, we would love to have you back in May.
Okay, we'll work
If
it
that
out.
works for you, we'll find out a good time, and then we can go more deeper into the amino acids and really help people look at how they can change their anxiety, depression,
Yeah,
addiction, and come back to life again. This is all about coming back to life, feeding your brain so that you can
have a
function.
life.
You
So
can
you
have a life, and it's not
can
just
have a life.
to have a life.
Yeah,
It's not about surviving. It's about thriving, as you say, Christina.
exactly. And so before I go, I just want to let everybody know that the Academy for Addiction and Mental Health Nutrition actually trains coaches. Patti and Jessica and others are listed on our website. The website is www.aminoacidtherapy.com. Really easy to remember, aminoacidtherapy.com. We have a scientific resource library with all the references on there. We have a little bookstore. You can buy some supplements, and you can find a coach if you want some support for yourself, because I am not currently taking on new clients. And then if you want to support the effort of getting this amazing information out into the world, or getting more information for yourself, please check out the website eatingproteinsaveslives.org and learn more.
Right.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so much.
Christina. Blessings to you and your work. Thank you again.
Much love.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Okay.
Wow.
Well, for our listeners, wow. We just want to share our live call-in number is 385-899-2134. Again, 385-899-2134. Somebody's going to be taking the calls. It's not us, but we'll just keep chatting because we love to chat now that our brain is fed.
Oh, wow. Wow. That
Yeah.
was so much good information. Wow.
Yeah.
I wrote down something because I want to jump back to what she said in the very, very beginning about, so she was talking about the people that are coming out of the prison system, right? And that their brain is hungry, that their brain is starving, that it's not being fed. And that's the same thing that's happening within our military system too, which makes me wonder why we have so much PTSD for our vets.
Yes.
Because I know that when my son was in the military, I know those meals that they were eating. And I know when I was working with some of the sailors, what they were being fed, because I was trying to say, okay, don't eat this. You need to eat this. You need to eat that, da, 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 da. But they can't. They are limited to what is being provided, especially the sailors who are out on a ship.
Yes.
So, I mean, if they're not being fed, their brains are more susceptible to having trauma, to having the PTSD, to not being able to function, to coming out and being angry, and just yeah.
Well, this is, as we know, this is we've talked about on this show about the food quality out there and how so many people aren't eating real food and don't know that, right? This isn't about a judgment. This is about, oh my goodness, we're not getting in the food that we need, or we're getting in an allergy, as Christina talked about earlier, from, some of the foods that people are eating, like corn, GMO corn, or the glyphosate in some of the grains and flours. So this is about bringing more hope back in. But I wanted to, what you just said about the sailors and the people in the military. You know, I also work at a local treatment center here, and I had, I'm talking to these guys about food, right? And I have a men's center, and then I work at a women's one too. And this one guy's going, well, you know, I just have to have my soda and I have to have my morning donut. And I'm like, okay, how many treatment centers have you been in, Fred? You know, name, not the real name, but anyway, he's like 27.
Oh, something's not working.
So I share that because we have to change things, folks. And yes, if we want to change our world, we've got to get our brains fed. This isn't this is science, actually. And why we don't know it? Well, because it's not in the system, right? It's not in the school system, but it's changing. There are lots of places that are opening up, like the Academy, like this Wellness Crusaders show, and many more out there are talking about nutrition and the brain, and all the nutritional therapy trainings that are out there. So it's not that it's not being talked about, just the majority of people don't know. So if you have a loved one who is dealing with mental health, anxiety, depression, addiction, please be sure that they get the food that's coming in. Please be sure they get protein, or find a coach to work with, or get on these websites and look up and get the information for yourself to make changes in your immediate world. And then we can share that in our communities, because that's what we're about. And one of the things Christina didn't talk about was serotonin, that I want to talk about. And I bet you do as well too, Jess, because we've lost people to suicide. So when serotonin is so depleted, you can have suicidal thoughts. And you may just be in that place where you're like, I'm done. You know, when the brain isn't fed, you're like, this is too much. So how do we get people to make changes in the world if they don't even want to be here because their brain's unfed? So the more we can continue to educate about this brain nutrition, the better we're all going to be. And so please just keep eating, caring for each other.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's really important what you said about the serotonin being linked to suicide, because I wrote a list, and I've lost 15 friends to suicide in my lifetime. And that is too many. Like, that is too many. I wish that I had this knowledge way back then, because one life lost to suicide is too many, right? One life lost is too many. One life lost to addiction is too many. And I mean, I've lost my spouse, and you've lost people with addiction, and you've lost people to suicide too. So that's two of us. That's two of us right here. How many people know somebody that have lost their life to addiction or suicide?
Right.
The numbers are increasing, and now it's affecting children. Like young children are taking their lives, and that is because of serotonin being low.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be that way.
It does not. And to our beautiful listeners, you know, this is about getting into your kitchen too. Okay. This isn't about just buying food online or running to the quick, you know, market or restaurant. Yes, once in a while, that's cool, but get into your kitchen, bring food back into your brain, back into your home, back into your body and your kids' bodies, and share with each other. You know, we've lost that art. You know, we started getting into the whole fast food thing, you know, in the Industrial Revolution. It was like, well, okay. And then in the 50s, it's like, well, let's have TV dinners and sit in front of the TV. Right. And so it is what it is. Yes. So
teaching your kids how to cook while they're young. And I remember planting a garden. I remember going out and tilling the ground with the hand plow, or my dad would use the tiller, but then we had this hand plow where we would go out and we'd plow it, and then we'd plant the seeds and we would water it, and we watered it with the irrigation water.
Right.
And I remember going out and picking it too, and how delicious it is to prepare that food that night and eat it. Or, you know, just go out and start picking peas on the pod. Like, those are so yummy. And my mom loved tomatoes so much that she would find all the farmers that, like, it was time to go pick the tomatoes. And we would go pick baskets and baskets full of tomatoes. And my mom would just sit there in the field just eating the tomatoes while she's picking them. And you can pick them when they're green and wrap them in newspaper, and like they will ripen over time. So you don't have to just get the ripe ones, you can pick them. But yeah, it's bringing back, I like what you said about the art. Like the art of it is
Right.
making it look beautiful. And Pati, you are so good at displaying food in such an artistic way that it just makes you hungry. You just start salivating when you're looking at it. All the rainbow of colors, right? Eating the rainbow.
Right. Yes. And also, thinking about when you're making your meals, what is your protein on your meal? Like we teach about that, right? It's like, okay, well, what protein do I have? And yesterday it was quinoa and tofu. It wasn't an animal protein for people out there, but I sure did put more extra tofu in there. Or you could just do quinoa with hemp seeds. You could put hemp seeds in and make a salad out of it. So we need to, just think about when you're making your meal or your shake. If you need to do a shake, just think, okay, I have my protein, and then when am I getting my fat in? We need a little bit of fat, and then we need our vegetables. So those are the 3 macros, folks. And that is the 5-star pro recovery diet. And I guess I can talk about that because the 5-star pro recovery diet is also, sometimes I say pro life diet, but it's a pro vibrant life diet, right? Because it's not just for recovery. It's essential for recovery. And it's recovery from substance. It's recovery from sleep. It's recovery from loss. It's recovery from, illness. We all need to rebuild that. It's our life diet. We need the 3 macros. We need protein, fat, and complex carbs. Those are the first 3 stars. We all need that. And we need about, again, 60 to 80 grams of protein a day, kind of throughout 3 times a day. And then we need a little bit of fat and lots of the omega-3s. And then we need our vegetables. So just think about, okay, like this salad that I made, there is every vegetable in my refrigerator in there, basically.
Like carrots.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to put lettuce on top. I'm going to chop it up. I'm going to throw it in. So there's carrots. There's radicchio, which is ridiculous. No, I'm just kidding. Usually people at the store are like, what is radicchio? I said, it's just a ridiculous, beautiful, delicious type of bitter lettuce. Celery, the clean mayo, organic mayo, carrots, some nutritional yeast just to bump it up, some kelp. So you can basically put everything in it, and then you just can have it on some crackers if you want, or just by itself, so it doesn't have to be that complicated. Or again, you can just have some fish and have a salad with it, but, and then the other 2 stars I'll talk about, and then we'll talk about the resilience fair coming up, is personalization. So as Christina was talking about, corn for her is allergic. I'm not allergic to corn, right? So finding out what you are allergic to, or using, we teach and train about the blood type. That's helpful. Christina's a blood type O, so don't be upset, blood type O's. But corn can create an issue for you. You can muscle test for yourself. Everybody's different. Everybody's individual. But find out what proteins work for you and what vegetables, actually, feed you and don't disrupt your gut. And then the 5th star is eating clean. And we talked a lot about that on our show, right? Because one of the things that happens is when our brains are so loaded up with toxins, right? That's affecting our ability to handle building our serotonin, because we're loaded up with these toxins. So the more we can start eating cleaner, buying organic, going to the farmer's market, know where your stores are that you can get the food that you need. And we're worth it. We all should have the right to eat organically. There's more of that available now. And, put your money into your food, because you're putting it into your brain, you're putting it into your health. And you'll feel really good, and you'll feel happy generally,
Yeah. Yep. I know. I feel really happy when I eat your food.
Well, do you feel happy when you eat your food?
Yeah, but it's always nicer when somebody cooks for you, right? There's like
That's
this
true.
extra, like, I don't know, it just tastes so much more yummy, even if it's the
Yeah.
same recipe.
Right. I know that's true. So, and that's part of eating together, right? Which we did yesterday together. That was really fun to have food together. Yeah. So nice. So let's talk a little bit about if we have no callers. The Heber Resilience Fair is just for folks who are here in Utah. Is next Saturday 9 to 1 at the high school in Heber. You will find me there with a table. I will hopefully be chatting there about food again and the Wellness Crusaders. And it's a wonderful fair. Of course, KMMU will be there as well too. The Main Street Media will have a table there. We'll be talking more about some of the other shows that are also on this media station. So please come and join us. And do you know more about it, Jess? Or I know Lori might. Lori, can you just talk a little bit more about the
Yeah, where's
fair?
Lori?
I don't know if she can come in or not and just chat with us. There you go. Hey, Lori.
Hey there. You guys are wonderful. It's so good to listen to Christina.
Yeah.
So the Heber Resilience Fair is actually being put on by Mike Peterson and Russ Olson and Russ's wife, Sandra. And basically, it's a health fair full of regenerative farmers, wellness crusaders, and other people into health and gardening and 4-H. There's all sorts of people. And it's from 9 to 1 p.m. next Saturday. It's totally free. Last year they had 2,000 people. This year they are expecting 3,000 people. There will be talks. Patti, I believe that you're going to be talking. Jill Watson is going to be talking about her initiatives and also about Main Street Media Utah. It's going to be a fabulous fair. Bring your children. This is the time to get involved with your children. This is the time that you can start educating them. So it's for the family.
I love that. And can you talk a little bit about Russ again for people that weren't on that show? He was on our show with
Sure.
Kathleen.
Yes.
A little. Okay.
So Russ Olson and his wife Sandra have are the owners of Starry Gardens, and basically it's a regenerative farming co-op. And everything that they grow there, they do not use any herbicides, they do not use any pesticides. None of their seeds are GMO, which really means genetically modified organisms, where some farmers are using seeds that resist the Roundup. So when you spray Roundup on it, it basically resists killing the seed, but it'll kill the weeds around it. Totally toxic, double whammy. And so his co-op is when you are a member there once a week, you get to go in and you get to pick your organic vegetables. But if you participate in helping him weed the garden once a week, you can walk away with a free bag of your delicious produce that you get to take. So they're wonderful
That's
people.
awesome.
And
Yummy.
Mike Peterson is going to be there. He's going to talk about building his gardens and his sunrooms. He'll be talking about that. There'll be a ton of people there. It's a wonderful event.
Nice. Sunrooms. I wonder what you mean, like a greenhouse?
Like a greenhouse. Yeah, it's greenhouse sunroom, and they're spectacular. He's got one on his property. So you'll have people there from Fieldcraft, and Fieldcraft actually is a place that teaches self-defense. I actually took an all women's training course there to learn self-defense for myself. They'll have somebody there talking about their place. They're located in Orem, but it's basically all of the, it's all locals. And so we all know that everybody that locally owns their own business, we all need that support. So we hope that people will show up. You can find them on the Facebook group, Heber Reliance. You can become part of their Facebook where you can get involved and you can learn. All their education is free. So they'll teach you how to plant. They'll show you what you need to do when you're buying your greenhouse stuff. It's just a wonderful group.
So can you be clear again? It's Heber
Reliance. Yes, and you can find them.
But it's the Heber Resilience Fair.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
because I get it. Which is why they would have training there for people to have self-defense. It's resilience. It's being able to come back from things.
Right. And last week they had somebody that was teaching the group how to do lymphatic massages for their children, because we all know that people are eating these toxins, and when they get stagnant and they get caught in the lymph nodes, or a kid gets sick, you want to be able to move those toxins out of the lymph nodes. So they did a class on lymphatic massage, and it was totally free and open to the public.
Nice.
Amazing.
Jessica, you do lymphatic stuff too.
Yeah, I teach a little bit of it, but it's such an amazing, wonderful system. So it runs this direction instead of this direction. So circulation runs this direction. So it's very important that we're moving that fluid and that we're walking and we're stimulating it, and that our lymph nodes are clear. The termini, like we have different termini points throughout our body. And when they get blocked, we're not draining. The fluid's not draining. And the lymphatic system is what carries the toxins out of our body. So if it's not draining, it's just sitting there causing more inflammation. That's when we become swollen. That's when edema happens. You'll notice like the little lines around your socks on your ankles. And that means it's time to move, to move that fluid.
I see some on my ankle right now.
Sitting long periods of time. Yeah, lack of movement.
Yeah. No, I love the lymphatic. And we were in the hot springs yesterday, and we were bouncing. So any of you that have trampolines, one of the best things you could do for yourself and your kids is to jump up and down on the trampoline, move the lymphatic system.
I jump on my bed.
Well, okay. Well,
I love that.
That's good for you. You have a strong bed. You're a strong woman, Jess.
You know what? I just want to throw out there too for the listeners, if they're coming in late. So the Wellness Crusaders, basically you can find us, you can send in an email at info@thewellnesscrusaders. Both Patti and Jessica both have consulting businesses. And I know that you heard a lot about amino acids. I am also a coach just like Jessica and Patti, but you can send them an email. So if you're looking for support and something triggered you to say, I want to learn more about 5-HTP. I love 5-HTP personally. I love GABA personally. Yes. So if you're looking for someone, these two women are your go-to, because there is no one in the state of Utah that knows more than these two. And so go ahead and send in an email, and they would be happy to help you get started with all this. You cannot do it alone. I'm just saying you need the support group. That's why we want you to join our crusade.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think there is one other person that knows more than us, and it's you, Lori, because you know a lot.
That's Lori.
We're all learning together. I mean, we
are learning together.
In the state of Utah, we need people to come together. I mean, the three of us have these conversations all the time where suicide is at an all-time high. What if a parent knew that they could go down even to their local natural grocery store and buy an amino acid supplement that could help the emotional brain? What if a parent knew that they weren't feeding their kid protein and they could help prevent a suicide? We just don't know, but we are the team that can talk about that. And food is poison, and it comes home and it's in our pantry, and most parents don't know about it. So don't be hard on yourself because you don't know. Get on your computer, send us an email. You can always call in to our call-in number. And
well,
yeah, you know what? I had a busy signal too as well.
Okay.
So let me
Yeah,
ask
we might have some glitches in the call-ins. So if you're not getting through to us, please send us an email.
Facebook. Jessica created our Facebook group. You can get in touch with us that way. And
Yeah.
that's where you join the crusade. Be part of it. Join the crusade.
Right.
Spread it to your neighbor who may have a struggling kid or a struggling older adult child. Spread the word, because our information on these talks are totally free. And if you want to take it one step further, you've got Patti and you've got Jessica out there that can help you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that's what we're here to do. It certainly saved my life. So I'd like to chat about it quite a bit. My anxiety was debilitating. And if anyone is ever feeling that debilitating anxiety, yes, you need therapy. You need to probably get a therapist and do some trauma work. But I didn't, as Christina talked about with her depression, my anxiety did not go away till I started feeding my brain. Wow. I didn't know I could wake up happy every day. I'll tell you that. And even with all the stuff going on in the world and all the pesticides and things that used to just take me down, I'm like, okay, well, now I know I can feed my brain and I can make choices and I know where to go. I couldn't do any of that. So I really understand where people get stuck of like, I can't participate out there because I can't care for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's baby steps, but the first step is feeding your brain and getting support, and getting a handle on anxiety, which I know can be very debilitating.
Right. Right. And that's where amino acid supplements come in. And if you know the power of amino acid supplements, you can help yourself. And if you can help yourself and you have a struggling child or a struggling significant other, you'll understand the power of the amino acids.
Right. Yes.
Quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Within 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I took a little bit before the show. This is the True Calm formula. And this has a little bit of GABA. It has some taurine. It doesn't have theanine in it, but I would have taken theanine if I had theanine. But part of the reason I took this was because I couldn't get into the show earlier. And I was like, let me in. I felt like I couldn't get in, and you guys were on the.
They're called life stressors. I mean, it happens to all of us. Jessica was on a call a month ago where, I had the same thing. I was kind of struggling to get everything up, and I could feel myself like breathing heavy. And I just had to remember to calm myself, mostly by doing birthday candles that Jessica taught me. But it's really the power of really understanding. And if you can learn, we are the team that can teach you.
Right. And I love that you talked about the candles, Lori, and the breath, because these are tools, right? The aminos and food are a main tool because it's the foundation for our brain, but we can do breath work. But the thing about the breath work too is if our brain is starving, like we brought in Christina to talk about, it's going to be hard to get to the breath work because our brain's offline. So we need to have our brain fed, and you can take some aminos and then do the breath work if you're having a trauma or a panic attack response.
Right. And something else that people should know, they hear talking about protein.
Yeah.
Even if you're a vegan, there are really good ways to get amino acids through supplements, exactly. So you don't necessarily have to eat meat.
We're going to drop you in as soon as
Okay, here we go.
Have a little
Okay, we're going to be quiet.
We have a caller.
Hi, guys.
Hi there.
Yes, you have a caller. I believe it's Tina calling. Tina, why don't you go ahead?
Tina.
Oh, isn't she still talking?
No, you're clear. Go ahead.
Hi, Gina.
This is Jean. Hi, I was actually just calling to make sure that your call-in number worked.
You're live. You're live, Gina. So if you have a question for us, we'd love to chat with you.
Okay, live with Wellness Crusaders.
Yes.
Yes. Can you hear
Yes.
me? Okay. All right. Hi. This is Gina, and I just, for one, want to say, Patti, that you have changed my life. Patti's helped me a lot. I had a surgery in November, and she got me through it. First of all, just by being such a fun, wonderful, kind person, and then really letting me know what amino acids I needed to take through my detoxing from the meds. And I got to be with Patti and Jessica a couple of weeks ago, and we ate meals together and just were together. And so the aminos are a major part of it, but I really want to emphasize the point of being together when we eat and being together in spaces. And so I know that there's a lot of people that eat meals alone, and when we eat meals together, there's something that happens. It's like it heals the wound in us from maybe birth or childhood, family wounds, or just really feels like it does something else to the cells along with the aminos and the protein. So also, Patti and I had just been talking about last week about the system and how broken our system is. And I am just super grateful for this talk today, because the work that you're doing really gives me hope that we can break through the system. And I know that it's been a hard road. I watched Patti, I watched you over the last 10, 14 years, and it has been 10 years or 14, I don't know, but many years. And I thank you for all of the hard work that you've done to get to this point and to get this information out there. So thank you. I love you.
Oh, thank you so much, Gina. We love you.
Thank you, Gina. Love you.
Thanks, Gina. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you.
Oh, I think we have another caller. Do we have another caller, Dwayne?
Coming right up.
Okay.
Hold on just a second.
Thank
right.
you.
I'll drop her in.
Thanks,
Thank
Dwayne.
you, Dwayne. Our lovely DJ for today.
DJ Dwayne.
And I wanted to just comment.
Is this Terry?
Oh, I gotta be quiet.
Hi, caller.
Okay, guys, I have Terry. Go ahead, Terry.
Hi. Hello.
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 I just wanted to. I just called in because I wanted to just stress the importance of what can be done with amino acid therapy, and it's also very important to find a professional to help you with it, because it's kind of complicated, and it's not really something you can find your way through on your own. But I suffered from long-term depression and that kind of flatness, gray, just lack of any kind of emotional involvement or sense of joy for years, and until I found a professional that could help me and show me introduce me to amino acids and literally changed my life. It is so great to feel happy and passionate again. I just can't express the gratitude that I feel strongly enough for the difference that this approach, this therapy can make. So that is.
Yeah. Thank you. Wow.
Thank you so much for that share, Terry. All right. Wow. Well, I think that's a good one to maybe finish up on. Yeah, and that's the power of the aminos, which, again, I didn't know anything about aminos when I was a certified health coach, and when we're all certified health coaches, and now we're certified nutrition amino acid coaches. But I was really happy to find amino acid therapy for myself, and realized, wow, oh my goodness, my brain has been starving for a very long time. And like Christina said, I think if we remember, she talked about using tyrosine because she needed tyrosine for a very long time. And she uses it occasionally now. The therapy, and as Terry just mentioned, our caller, working with someone who knows what they're doing, and that's why we're trained in it, is really helpful. So
I do have.
I think Terry's got one. Terry's got one more question for you.
Sorry,
Go ahead,
Terry.
Ask away.
Yeah, I just kind of was wondering what I don't know if you mentioned it earlier, but what types of foods can you do? Can you bring into your diet that will boost serotonin for you? And these different amino acids. Is it just any type of protein, or does it kind of need to be specific types?
Well, want me to take it?
So when you're thinking of 5-HTP or tryptophan, which converts over to serotonin, think about back maybe when your parents or your grandparents would always talk about don't eat too much turkey because then you would be calm. So there is tryptophan in meats like turkey, which then would end up converting to serotonin. So I always view serotonin as a Dr. Raymond Brain certified health coach. I always view serotonin as the gear shifter.
Yes.
And if your gear shifter is stuck, you're not able to go from thought to thought. And then I'll give you just a quick example. Let's just say that maybe someone says something to you and you misconstrue it as a negative thought. And then your brain is stuck because it can't shift. Like, I can't believe that person said that to me. I can't believe that person said that to me. That's a prime example of how being low in serotonin, you would be able to tell because you can't gear shift off of that thought to say, well, maybe I misunderstood what that person said to me. But I'm going to take it one step further, and it's not that I'm knocking conventional medicine, because I do believe that there are times that conventional medicine has to marry with the Eastern side of herbs and amino acids. If someone took that thought into their doctor, and let's just say it's a general practitioner, that person would probably walk out with some type of a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, an SSRI, or an antidepressant, because the doctor could say, oh my gosh, you've got anxiety and depression, because they're not addressing root cause. And addressing root cause is taking a look at the gut, taking a look at the brain, trying to find out how much protein foods you eat. And if the doctors would just take a time to talk with somebody to really get that, it doesn't have to be an hour, but if they would just start off at the gut and they could say, and I'll use your name because you called in as Terry, but Terry, how much protein foods do you eat? Are you eating red dyes? Are you eating foods that have chemicals in them, Roundup and 2,4-D, herbicides and pesticides, because our brains aren't able to process those chemicals. And if they get stuck, then guess what? Your brain is stuck.
Right.
And knowing those symptoms, if you feel sad, if somebody feels sad and alone all the time, maybe a GABA deficiency. If somebody has digestive issues, it could be a GABA deficiency. But if somebody has OCD type thoughts, or they can't seem to gear shift off a negative and overwhelming thought, that for sure is a sign of low serotonin. And that's where Jessica and Patty come in, you know, in myself too, but that's where they would come in to be able to help you as holistic health coaches. And I hope that answers your question, Terry.
Well,
I guess it does.
well, I just wanted to add to that, Lori. Thank you for that. And Terry, if you're still on, I love the gear shift, because that's the obsessive thoughts you can't seem to like change out of it, right? So serotonin foods are, like Lori said, turkey, but it's also nut butters, which you could put hemp seeds on. It's fish. You could do protein shakes with some, you know, adaptogen powders, beef. If you're
Some
eating
complex carbs have, you know, like
quinoa.
spinach, quinoa.
Yep.
Hemp seeds. It doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily have to go back to a red meat or chicken if somebody is a vegan or a vegetarian. It's easier to get protein from eggs and chicken and fish, but it's not impossible to do it if somebody is a vegan out there listening to us.
Are you a vegan, Terry?
I am not.
Okay. So then you would, but for those that are listening that are, if you are a vegan or vegetarian, you will have to work harder on your meal planning. We will just say that. So,
Well,
but you can do it.
Yeah. And how many grams, like for women, it's at least 20 grams per meal, right?
Yes.
For men, it's double that. Isn't it? Half of your body weight in grams per day of protein?
Yeah. Yes. And unless you're working out, like you're really super fit and you're like a bodybuilder, then you need a little bit more because your muscles need a little bit more.
Well, yes. And thank you for that, both of you. But I also, if you're healing your brain, you probably need more too. You know, if you're, you know, whenever like you're studying or you're giving a lecture, I've found that I am so hungry that my brain needs more protein. So the physical workout, but as Christina was talking about, our brain workout too, as we're repairing our brain, needs a little bit more as well too. So,
well, and one of the things that we haven't mentioned at all in our show is how powerful they are for working with brain injuries as well, because I had a concussion, and that is where the amino acids were introduced into my life. And so it's not just mental health and PTSD and addiction, it's brain injuries as well. So it's healing the majority of brain problems.
Absolutely, especially the protein and the omega-3s as well. I just want to make sure we answered Terry's question. I don't know if he's still on.
Yes.
Yes. I also recall something Christina mentioned earlier when she was on, that when you're rebuilding the endorphin part of your brain, the neurotransmitters, that you might need to go on a really high protein diet to do that. I just wondered what that might look like.
Yes, and that's because the molecule, the actual endorphin molecule, is a lot longer. And I learned that from Christina. So we need more protein. And that's oftentimes where we recommend the total aminos, as well as in more intake in your diet. And for anybody that is a vegan or vegetarian, I put them on total aminos anyway, just because it allows them to get in those aminos that they may not get in through the meat. So that's kind of a mainstay. So you could get a total amino, Terry, and then also just increase your protein to build the endorphins if you feel like you're low in that.
And Terry, you can send us an email and we would be happy to chat with you further about it. The email is info@thewellnesscrusaders.com.
Yes, for sure, Terry.
All right.
So thank you for calling in.
Thank you very much.
Good luck to you, Terry.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
All right, ladies, that was wonderful.
I have
you know
one
what?
thing to share.
And then I have a question. If we could kind of end on this, I would like for like one of you two or both of you. I think suicide in the state of Utah needs to be addressed. It's at an all-time high. And I think that, parents or anybody else struggling, between what both of you are doing in that realm,
The mental health, yes.
I think that parents, especially with these struggling teens in today's world where they don't know where they fit in, I think it would be very helpful if there are any moms or anyone that is listening, if you could pass the information on to them, because we also work with children. It's not about just recovery and addiction. We work with children and we work with teens, and teens need protein foods.
Absolutely.
It's so hard. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you up, and then I'll just kind of my last thing. If you have a teenager that is saying they are thinking about being a vegetarian or a vegan, you have to get a hold of one of us. It is the wrong thing to do. You will starve their brain.
Their developing brain.
Yes. So that's the last thing that I have to say. Sorry,
No,
Jess.
I think thank you, Lori. And I know Jessica wants to finish up, but we were going to I think maybe we could put together an SOS for suicide list of protein foods, and we'll put that on our website. And please get in touch with us, because we can't really do that with aminos. We'd have to assess someone to see what medication they may be on and what other things are going on for them. But we can certainly give you a list of foods to get into your teen or yourself. I mean, it's not just teens. I mean, adults are wanting to leave too. And so we want to prevent that. So we will put together an SOS suicide protein list on our website that you can get to. And then
and if you want to be notified when that becomes available, send us an email at info@thewellnesscrusaders.com so we can make sure that we include that and send it to you.
Great.
So I just wanted to share a testimony that I received the other day from one of my clients that I was checking in on. This client, I'm gonna cry.
Yeah.
This client was an alcoholic who was having seizures and had also sustained a brain injury at the time that she decided to stop drinking. And so I was checking in on her. This was just about a week ago. And I was like, I'm just checking in on you. She said, hey, hun, I'm doing amazing at not drinking. The weekends are the hardest, but I'm really determined. My brain and body are starting to feel almost normal. I noticed that if I don't take my omegas, I can't think though. So that one is huge. She said, thank you. I am so happy that you've held my hand through this. You're so important in this process and you mean the world to me. My cousin that is the same age and has 2 kids as my daughter just had a seizure this last weekend and is now no longer with us. My family's dealing with the shock because she was completely healthy. It's bizarre and of course sad. I've had seizures sometimes due to my alcohol and my trauma, and I really believe that my lifestyle and the supplements and the knowledge you have taught me have made the difference. So I just wanted to end with that, because that's how powerful what we are doing is. Like, that is how powerful. It saves
Feeding your brain. Thank you, Jessica, for that.
That was beautiful.
Beautiful. Okay. Whew.
Whew, so reach out to us.
Mhm.
There's hope. There is light. There is life again.
There is life again. Yep. There is joy again.
There is
Thank
bliss.
you both.
Thank you too, Lori. We're
Yeah.
honored to be here to help our community. So thank you to all our listeners, and keep the faith and please eat.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
All
Much
right.
love.
Much love.
Bye for now.
Bye to everybody.